So if you've been microdosing a GLP-1, you might have run into some specific problems, and these problems make losing weight either harder, slower, or stop completely. For example, not having the right dose makes losing weight harder, and plateaus makes weight loss stop. Now, if we can solve these problems, then weight loss gets easier, faster, and more consistent. So in this video, I'm going to go over the 4 big problems I've experienced microdosing a GLP-1 and how I solved them. So you can hopefully have solutions to these issues when they come up and have less trouble achieving your goals. I'm Nico, nutrition coach microdosing tirzepatide to help control my binge eating and to lose some vanity weight. All right, these are the 4 main problems I've experienced so far: figuring out the right dose, plateaus or slow fat loss, hunger coming back, and side effects. Now, of course, these aren't all the problems. There's a lot that aren't on the list, and there are problems within problems that some of you or I may never experience, at least for right now, because they can always come up in the future. But having solutions for these big 4 can solve a lot of other issues. And by the way, some of these problems can only be solved temporarily. We just have to keep dealing with them until we hit our goal weight. All right, let's start with dose. So not having the right dose makes everything harder. If your dose is too low for you, you might not get enough appetite suppression, which means hunger will become a problem, and that leads to plateaus, and that means wasting time and money on your GLP-1. Now, if your dose is too high, you might get too many side effects, that quality of life goes down, which makes losing weight harder. And on top of that, once we find the dose that works, it can change as we lose weight, and we have to go through the process of finding a new dose that works. So how do we solve this problem and find the right dose? Honestly, it's just trial and error. Everyone responds so differently to GLP-1s that it's hard to give an exact dose that works for everyone. Like, I'm microdosing and I get a ton of side effects, and I know there are some people who take like 10 times my dose and don't feel anything. So it really just depends on the person. The good news is that if you have a process to finding the right dose, then the dosing problem is much easier to solve. I have a few videos related to this topic that go over my approach to microdosing, in case you were curious about my method. But your provider or doctor's approach might be good enough. I've been at my current dose and frequency for 5 months now, and I'm pretty sure I won't make any more changes until I hit my goal weight. Maybe I might increase it again, but we'll see, since I think I'm at my limits side effects wise. But yeah. Also, if you have to increase your dose and get out of the microdose range, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you get what you want from the meds with as little downsides, it doesn't really matter if you're taking a standard dose or a microdose. I personally would take whatever dose I need. I just happen to be really sensitive to the meds, which has both its pros and cons. Okay, plateaus and slow fat loss is the next problem I've had to deal with. I've never plateaued, luckily, but my weight loss has slowed down at times and I had to speed it up. If I didn't, then I would for sure plateau. So what are the downsides to plateauing and losing at a slower rate? The first downside is that it takes longer to hit our goals. Most people, including myself, don't want to go through the process of losing weight. They'd rather just have their dream body and not have to deal with any weight loss related problems. Like for me, losing weight and solving problems takes a lot of mental bandwidth, and it's also physically draining because I'm just eating less food. If I was at my goal weight already, then all the time and energy that goes into losing weight can go towards something else. Like, if you think about it, if you had your dream body and didn't have to worry about losing weight or how you looked, what would you be doing instead? Like, where would your time and attention be? I mean, for sure, you probably wouldn't be watching this video or thinking about anything weight related. So maybe you'll just be enjoying life or something. Okay, next is quality of life. When I lose weight for a long time, as in 3 months or longer, quality of life gradually gets worse. Things like sleep quality, energy levels, and mental clarity go down, and this is just part of eating less to lose weight. I want to get out of the fat loss process as fast as possible and as safely as possible, because having worse quality of life over time is just inconvenient. And not only does it make life suck, but the process of weight loss harder too. If I'm in a plateau or losing weight too slowly, then I'm stuck in the fat loss process for longer. Now, you can technically avoid this quality of life stuff by losing weight at a super slow rate, like, I don't know, a quarter pound or less per week, but I'm going to assume you don't want to take forever to hit your goal weight. Okay, and the last downside is money. This is more so for people who are paying a lot for their GLP-1s. If money is not an issue, then that's great. But for those of you who don't want to keep spending on a GLP-1, the longer it takes to hit your goal weight, the more money you have to spend. So losing weight too slowly means more money, and hitting a plateau means you're just wasting money. And you're also wasting it if you rebound and regain the weight, but that's besides the point. So what are the solutions? My solutions for plateaus and slow weight loss are actually the same. I basically eat less, increase my physical activity, or do a combination of both. Then when I can't manage hunger, I consider increasing my dose, assuming I can handle the side effects. So every time my weight loss slows down, I just do what I just said to speed it up to prevent plateaus. If I was in a plateau, I'd be doing the same things. I'm really simplifying this for the sake of the video, but it's really all I've done to not plateau. And again, I have videos on this as well as the other problems I've dealt with in more detail. All right, hunger coming back and hunger fluctuations, which are similar. As you probably noticed already, the effects of GLP-1s don't really last too long in our system. It's why most people have to take their shot weekly or sometimes less. Like in my case, I take it every 5 days. So after we take our shot, we have a decent amount of appetite suppression. Then the days before our next shot, we are more hungry. Now, on low appetite days, if we can't eat enough, we might end up being too low on energy, or maybe we might lose weight too fast, which has a bunch of problems. And when hunger comes back and appetite is high, we might crave more and eat more food, which leads to overeating and not losing weight. If we have both problems, then we might not end up losing any weight at all, which is a plateau and at worst, gaining weight. I've had to deal with this for a few weeks and it sucked because I could have lost more weight by now, but yeah, it is what it is. All right, how do we solve this? Hunger management can be both a dosing problem and a not knowing how to eat problem. For dose, we just need to find the right dose that helps give us enough appetite suppression and helps reduce the feelings of hunger. And if we do that, then the next solution is knowing how to eat with a low or high appetite. If appetite is low, we still need to make sure we're eating enough food, but that can be hard because we have low appetite. So some things I do is eat more calorie-rich foods like desserts or junk food. If you're not into eating processed foods, then you can have things like peanut butter or dried fruits or anything along those lines. I also have more liquid calories instead of solid foods, so think protein shakes instead of chicken. And I eat less high volume foods like vegetables because if I eat too much, I get too full and bloated and I can't eat enough calories. Now, if appetite is high, we need to make sure we don't overeat and gain weight. So the things I would do are actually the opposite of what I said about the low appetite stuff. I have less calorie-rich foods and instead more fruits and vegetables, and I have more solid foods and less liquid calories. Also, I only eat when I'm hungry, which helps a lot, but I wouldn't do this with a low appetite or else I wouldn't eat the whole day. There are more things I do for both of these, but these are my go-tos as of recently. Knowing how to manage hunger is extremely useful throughout your weight loss journey, and it's also part of the reason how I keep my dose on the low side, relatively speaking, because if you know how to manage hunger on a high appetite, you might not need to increase your dose to do it for you. But a lot of this also depends on what you typically eat. The last problem is side effects. Luckily for most microdosers, they don't get many side effects, if any. I am unfortunately not one of those people and I get nausea and bloat. I used to get headaches and stomach cramps, but those aren't too bad and they went away. Side effects makes losing weight more of an issue than it has to be. Like before I started taking a GLP-1 and I had to lose weight, I would just have to deal with things like hunger and cravings and low energy. And now I still have to deal with those things just to a lesser extent, plus adding on side effects to it. It's just a trade-off for me and it's worth it. Now, to get more specific, whenever I deal with nausea and bloat, I don't want to eat more food, which leads me to under-eating for the day. This isn't always too bad because I can make up the calories later in the week, but whenever I have to deal with side effects, it just makes my day harder to get through. All right, what are the solutions? Dealing with side effects can be both a dose problem as well as a food problem. Because for me, I'm sensitive to GLP-1s, so if I increase my dose even a little bit, or if I eat any fatty or greasy foods, I get more nausea and bloat. So first, if I have the right dose, then I know how much I can take before side effects become too hard to handle. I personally always deal with it to some extent. It just depends on how much GLP-1 is currently in my system. Like after I take my shot, I feel it more, and before shot day, I feel it less. But as long as I can manage it and it's not too bad, I'll stay at my dose. So it really depends on how much you can personally tolerate. Now, let's assume I have the right dose. The way I address side effects is by eating foods that don't trigger it. What works for me is that around shot day, I just eat less fatty, greasy foods. I eat foods that I know sit well in my stomach. And if I try anything new, like any new type of foods, because I like going out to restaurants, I wine taste my food. Basically, it's just taking little bites and sips of the food to see how I react. And if everything is good, I wine taste again until I'm confident I won't get nausea. Also, the biggest thing I notice causing my nausea is actually not eating. Like if I go for a few hours without eating, then that can trigger my nausea because the lack of food and not the food itself. For bloat, it's pretty much the same things, except one of the differences is that I try not to eat or drink anything that gets me too full, because being bloated also gives me nausea. The reason why I don't lower my dose is because the amount of appetite suppression that I get is perfect for me, and I'll take dealing with side effects than having to deal with a higher intensity of hunger. Again, it's just trade-offs. All right, so we just went over the 4 main problems that I've experienced while microdosing for fat loss. Now, after we lose the weight, you might think we have no more problems. And yeah, some of the problems are probably gone for good. But I predict after I hit my goal weight, my fat loss problems will quickly get replaced with new problems, or maintenance problems. Maintenance is just what happens after we hit our goal, and it's where we need to maintain our weight loss. At the time of recording, I am not at my goal weight yet, so anything related to GLP-1 stuff is just a prediction, but I'm pretty confident that I'm going to experience these problems. These problems are dosing and hunger management again, and new ones like preventing rebounds or fat regain and setting new goals. I'll just quickly go over my thoughts on these, and I'll make a full video on this in the future. For dose, I will be lowering it after I hit my goal weight because I will be trying to find my maintenance dose, meaning a dose lower than I currently take that doesn't give me as much appetite suppression, so I don't continue to lose weight. The problem here is that hunger is going to come back because I can't rely on my GLP-1 to manage it. So to solve this, it's probably going to be more trial and error and just having a process to finding my maintenance dose. The good news is that I probably won't get any more side effects. Hopefully. Okay, next is hunger coming back. As I just said, I won't have a higher GLP-1 dose to manage my hunger, so I need to manage hunger and cravings without it. This is pretty much what I do anyways on my high appetite days, so it's a good thing I've been doing it now because I'll for sure be doing it more later. All right, the next big problem is preventing rebounds. I'm a strong believer that I can rebound when I reduce my dose and go into maintenance, so I still need to really keep track of what I'm eating and make sure not to overeat. The big concern for me personally is cravings. I hope it doesn't go out of hand because I have a big sweet tooth and I can go overboard with the cookies and the donuts and the ice cream and the pastries. Pretty much if it tastes good, I can go overboard with it. So if I can't handle the cravings, then my maintenance dose is probably too low and I will be regaining the weight I lost, which means I wasted time and money on my GLP-1. The solutions are probably the first two, having the right dose and then managing hunger. Okay, the last one is goals. This doesn't apply to everyone, but I'll cover it. The thing about losing weight is that there's a goal to work towards, and after you hit your goal weight, maintaining it is the next goal. And technically, you achieve it every day, you don't gain weight. This is a problem because there's not necessarily anything to work towards or make progression towards. And this is purely a mental problem some people can have, including myself. I like to think of it from the perspective of a young person who just graduated college. Let's say this person worked really hard to get into a nice school, and they also worked really hard to graduate, so they can hopefully get a nice job with all the good stuff like benefits, 401k, good pay, etc. Now, let's assume they got the job. Now, what do they do? Well, they have to keep the job and continue working and probably do the same thing every day for decades until they retire. And that shift from trying really hard to achieve something and then just getting through the days is pretty hard for some people to deal with. With no progression towards a goal can actually make people regress in terms of fat loss. I see it all the time, like people will spend months and sometimes years to get the body they want, but after they get it, they stop caring about maintaining it. And I believe that it's not just about losing the weight, but you also have to keep it off. Forever, probably. Now, what am I going to do to solve this? I'm actually going to have new goals related to my weight. I'm not going to be in maintenance for too long because I want to put on some muscle. And to do that, I need to eat a bit more food. And in that process, I will be most likely gaining some fat. Then eventually I need to go through this whole fat loss process again and then rinse and repeat until I want to do something else with my life. But anyways, that's the video. Again, for the last time, I've made videos addressing each of the fat loss problems in more detail. So if you're dealing with anything specific, check it out. They might help. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks for watching. Bye.